Our objective today is similar polygons. Similar polygons are figures that have the same shape, but not necessarily the same size. Congruent is having the same measurement. So VIC number 1, similar polygons have two important properties. Property 1 is that the corresponding angles have the same measurement, so the corresponding angles are congruent. And 2, the ratio of the lengths of the corresponding sides are equal to each other. So, some examples. Tell whether each figure shows a pair of similar polygons. So we have two rectangles, and obviously these are not the same size. So we have a width of 12 and a length of 18, and a width of 5 and a width of 7.5. So what you're going to do to determine if they're similar, their ratios of their corresponding sides should be equal to each other. And we know that their corresponding angles because all rectangles have 90-degree angles. So you're going to set up a proportion for their sides. So we have the first rectangle, so 12 over 18. So the width over the length should equal the width over the length of the smaller rectangle, 5 over 7.5. Well, you have a proportion, so to solve proportions, you cross multiply. So 12 times 7.5 is 90, and 18 times 5 is 90. Since these are equal to each other, then they are a similar figure. If they were not equal to each other, they would not be similar figures. You could also simplify these fractions and see if you get the same answer. So 12 over 18 is 6/10 repeating, and 5 over 7.5 is 6/10 repeating. Since they are the same number, they are similar. So if your proportion is equal, then your figures are similar. If they're not equal, then there's no similarity between the figures, even though they're the same shape. So let's look at number 2. We have a triangle with degrees of 75, 50, and 55, and sides 6.5, 10, and 9. Here we have 55, 75, and 50, 3, 2.25, and 3.5. So our angles correspond with each other, so now we need to make sure that our sides correspond. So we have 2.25, so this small one corresponds with this one, 6.5. 3 corresponds with 9, and 3.5 corresponds with 10. Now, it doesn't look like it because this one has been turned, so it's not in the same angle as the first one. So that you need to make sure that your corresponding sides are matched up. Well, 2.25 divided by 6.5 is 0.3461. 3 over 9 is 0.3 repeating, and 3.5 over 10 is 0.35. These are not equal to each other. They are not the same ratio. So since they're not in equal proportion, they are not similar. VIC number 2. When finding unknown lengths of similar figures, you're going to set up a proportion with corresponding lengths. So you also might have similar figures and you're missing one of the sides. So you can set up a proportion to find the length of that missing side. So we have two parallelograms. We have a width of 5 meters and 8.5, 12, and x. So we're looking for the length of this larger parallelogram. So you're going to set up an equation. So 5 and 12 are corresponding. They're the same side but on different figures. So we have 5 over 12 equals 8.5, and the 8.5 was first because the 5 came first in the first proportion, or first ratio, over x. Well, to solve a proportion, you cross multiply. So we have 5 times x, which is 5x, and 12 times 8.5, which is 102. Divide by 5, so we get x to be 20.4 meters. Let's look at another example. We have two figures. Now, these are not face the same, but they're the same figure. They're just drawn in a different location. So now we have to find x and y. So you're going to have to set up two proportions, one to find x, one to find y, using corresponding sides. So we know that 8, which is the base here, matches up with the base of this figure, which is 3. So we have 8 over 3 equals, well, we're finding x, and since 8 went on top for the first one, x is going to go on top of the second one. So x over, well, x matches up with this side of 3.75. Cross multiply, 8 times 3.75 is 30, and 3 times x is 3x. Solving for x, we divide by 3, so x is 10. Now we're going to set up a second proportion to find y. So we still know that 8 and 3 are corresponding with each other. So I have 8 over 3 equals 14 over the y, because this one and the y correspond with each other. Cross multiply, 8 times y is 8y. 3 times 14 is 42. Divide by 8. 42 divided by 8 is 5.25, so this y is 5.25 inches.